On a cold December night in 1958, a family of 5 vanished while driving through Oregon's Columbia River Gorge. Their car was found abandoned, its tires frozen to the earth. 2 daughters were found months later, starved, buried in forest silence. The youngest, Nancy, and her parents, gone, no blood, no bodies, just a pink stuffed rabbit, and a sketch of a cabin that didn't exist, yet led police to the truth 66 years later. This isn't a missing persons case. It's a breadcrumb trail left by children. A cold-blooded crime hidden under snow and silence. And a killer who believed the river would keep his secret. He was wrong. Barbara Martin taped the last box shut, kitchen, fragile, and wiped flour from her hands. Through the kitchen window, she watched Kenneth tinker with the frost-blue 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air. Its chrome grille gleamed under the winter sun. Our Seattle chariot, he'd called it. Will Mr. Hops like Seattle, Mommy? Nancy, 8 years old, pressed her stuffed rabbit's ear to the glass. He'll love the rain, Barbara smiled, tying the rabbit's frayed scarf. But first, tomorrow, gorge lights. The move was Kenneth's idea. Boeing's hiring mechanics, he'd said after losing his Portland shop job. Barbara resisted. The girls' school, their friends, but eventually relented. This trip was her compromise. One last Oregon Christmas memory. All aboard the Polar Express, Kenneth called as the Chevy's engine purred to life. Barbara slid beside him, her gloved hands cradling a thermos of cocoa. In the back seat, Susan, age 14, sat with her sketch pad open, charcoal smudged on her cheek. Vista House has perfect perspective, Dad. Virginia, 12, was buried in Anne of Green Gables. Can we see the lake of shining waters? Nancy had buckled Mr. Hops in with a toy seatbelt. He wants cocoa, too. Their itinerary was carefully planned. 3:30 p.m. at the Vista House overlook for a photo op. 5 p.m. dinner at Tad's Chicken and Dumplings, 6:30 p.m. Crown Point Christmas lights, and home by 8 p.m. Keep an eye on the sky, Kenneth warned. Radio said freezing fog past Troutdale. Barbara nodded, uneasy. She'd packed extra blankets, just in case. At 3:58 p.m., wind whipped Barbara's scarf as she corralled the girls near the stone overlook. Below, the Columbia River churned, steel gray under bruised clouds. Over here, Martins, called Albert Finch, a 62-year-old tourist visiting from Spokane. They lined up, Kenneth squinting at the horizon, hand on Nancy's shoulder, Barbara adjusting Nancy's wool hat, her eyes tight with worry. Susan waving half-heartedly, distracted by cliff formations. Virginia clutching her book like a shield. Nancy hugging Mr. Hops, rabbit facing the camera. Say plum pudding, Finch joked. The flashbulb popped. Later, Finch would tell investigators. Mrs. Martin looked pale, said, I hate how fast the dark comes. Kenneth had bought postcards at the gift shop. They were never mailed. Fog swallowed the gorge as they drove. Ice crystals glittered in the headlights. Tad's should be right up. Kenneth leaned forward, peering at obscured signs. Ken, slow down, Barbara urged. That curve looks... The Chevy fishtailed. Virginia screamed. Kenneth wrestled the wheel as tires crunched gravel. Everyone okay? His knuckles were white on the wheel. The girls nodded. Silence followed. At 5:45 p.m., they missed the turnoff to Tad's. Next diner's at Crown Point, Kenneth muttered. At 6:15 p.m., they stopped roadside so Kenneth could check the tires. Black ice everywhere. Nancy pressed Mr. Hops to the fogged window. He sees lights. Barbara stroked her hair. Soon, sweet pea. At 6:32 p.m., they pulled off at the Laterelle Falls pullout. Need a breather, Kenneth said, killing the engine. I'll come. Nancy unbuckled her seatbelt. Just 2 minutes, Button, Barbara cautioned. Keep your mittens on. Kenneth lifted Nancy onto the guardrail. Hear the falls? Mr. Hops wants to see. He set her down. Stay by the car. Promise? According to later reconstruction by OSP, Kenneth walked 10 feet toward the overlook. Nancy followed. She slipped on ice. Mr. Hops tumbled down the embankment. Nancy scrambled after it. "Nancy, stop!" Kenneth lunged. There was a screech, fabric tearing. Kenneth stumbled back to the car, clutching Nancy's red mitten inside out. "She's gone, Barb, just gone." Panic consumed the Chevy. Virginia sobbed into her book. Susan drew frantic circles on her sketch pad. Barbara stared at the mitten. "We have to call the police." "Next phone's at Crown Point," Kenneth said, accelerating. "Ken, this isn't the highway," Barbara shouted, grabbing the dashboard. "Shortcut. Saves 20 minutes." The road was narrow, unpaved. It had steep drop-offs, no guardrails, and no signage. Ice glazed the ruts. "Daddy, I'm scared," Susan whispered. "Almost." Crunch. The Chevy lurched. Steam hissed from the hood. Axles snapped. Kenneth groaned. At 7:15 p.m., stranded on Forest Service Road 17, Kenneth draped coats over the shivering girls. "I'll hike for help." "No." Barbara grabbed his arm. "What if they come back?" "Who? Who took Nancy?" Silence. The gorge swallowed her words. In the dark, Susan's pencil scratched across her page. She drew a cabin with a crooked chimney, smoke curling into pine trees, and a figure in the doorway, a fedora, no face. "What's that, Sue?" Virginia asked softly. "I saw it, through the trees when we crashed." At 8:03 p.m., two men emerged from the fog with flashlights, Elmer Vance, 48, and his brother Clyde, 51, local trappers. "Car trouble?" Elmer asked. "Our daughter's lost," Barbara burst out, "and our little girl." "Easy, ma'am," Elmer said calmly. "Saw a kid's toy down by the river earlier. Pink rabbit?" Kenneth lunged. "Where?" Elmer's 1957 Ford pickup idled 50 yards away. It was never searched. Clyde carried a rifle, allegedly for cougars. "We'll fetch help," Clyde promised. "Stay put. Roads are nasty." By 9:30 p.m., the temperature had dropped to 19°, 7°C. Hypothermia was setting in. Virginia's teeth chattered uncontrollably. Susan's sketchpad slipped from her fingers. "We'll die waiting," Kenneth said. "I'm carrying the girls to that cabin Sue drew." "What if those men come back?" Barbara clutched Nancy's mitten. "If they wanted to hurt us, they'd have done it." Kenneth carried Virginia on his back. Barbara held Susan's hand, her flashlight beam trembling. Susan clutched her sketchbook. The page with the cabin drawing was torn out and left on the car seat. Left behind were Kenneth's toolbox, Barbara's purse, Nancy's other mitten, and Mr. Hops, presumed lost. They walked for miles in circles. Susan stumbled, crying, "The cabin's gone." "Listen," Kenneth rasped. "Running water means a road." He scrambled down an embankment. Virginia slid after him. "Ken, wait!" Barbara screamed. A sickening crack, the sound of river ice breaking. Barbara's final diary entry, recovered in 2024, read, "Deck 5. Nancy dreamed of drowning. Said Mr. Hops floats." Flashlight beams swept the ridge above. Elmer and Clyde's voices echoed faintly. "Over here. Leave 'em, the river's got 'em now." At 6:42 a.m. on December 8, 1958, Sheriff's Deputy Hank Lowry scanned the Chevy's abandoned shell on Forest Road 17. There was no blood, no broken glass, just Kenneth's toolbox spilled open, Susan's sketchbook splayed to the page with the cabin drawing, and Nancy's left red mitten on the passenger seat. They walked away, Lowry radioed. Probably hitchhiked to warmth. But a critical oversight would haunt the investigation. Lowry never tested the steering wheel for Kenneth's prints. It may have been wiped. He didn't check the passenger door handle for Barbara's skin cells. He didn't document the footprints around the car, already obscured by trapper boots. 2 days later, on December 10th, volunteer fireman Arlo Jenkins found something at the base of La Tourelle Falls. Mr. Hops, Nancy's pink rabbit frozen in shoreline ice, 300 yards downstream from where Nancy's mitten had been found. The forensic notes from 1958 described the rabbit's left ear as torn off, not cut. Mud was packed deep into the fur, suggesting it had been dragged overland before entering the water. The red yarn scarf was missing. She wouldn't leave him. Barbara's sister sobbed when told of the find. Wherever Nancy is, he was taken from her. On December 15th, deputies returned to the Vance brothers' trapline after neighbors reported smelling fabric burning. Behind Elmer Vance's shack, they found an ash pile with melted buttons, the size matching a child's coat, and Virginia's library card, half-burned, identifying her as the borrower of Anne of Green Gables. Burning trash, Elmer shrugged, found that card on the road. But Elmer's boot tread matched prints found near the Martins' abandoned car. In the bed of his Ford pickup, rope fibers matched the binding of Susan's sketchbook. Still, no arrest was made. Circumstantial, the sheriff said. We need bodies. By January 1959, Detective Lena Pierce at OSP headquarters pinned Susan's drawing to the wall. This cabin exists. I've seen it. She identified the structure as the long-abandoned U.S. Forest Service Ranger Station No. 5, 3 miles northeast of the crash site. On January 12th, search teams combed the ranger station. They found footprints, size 5 women's boots, on the porch, Barbara's size. Inside was a thermos with the Martin family monogram. The liquid inside was still warm when discovered. Kenneth's wrench was jammed in the doorframe, suggesting either a forced entry or an attempt to barricade the door. The shock came inside. 3 bedrolls had been assembled from car seat upholstery. They had been used recently. On May 12, 1959, loggers clearing storm damage near Tanner Creek Ravine caught a sickening scent. Under a nurse log lay the body of 12-year-old Virginia. She was curled in a fetal position, arms crossed, wrapped in car seat fabric. There was no trauma. The cause of death was hypothermia. 20 feet away, propped against a cedar tree, was Susan. Her sketchpad lay open to the finished cabin drawing. Smoke rose from the chimney, but now it was black, and the chimney was cracked. Susan had drawn what she saw until the end. Her autopsy revealed she died of dehydration and starvation. The contents of her stomach included berries, tree bark, and snow. Time of death, mid-January 1959. She had survived more than 5 weeks after the disappearance. The most devastating revelation: no search teams had entered the ravine. It had been deemed too far from the river. On May 20, 1959, the ranger station thermos was re-examined. Inside, forensic technicians discovered a handwritten note. Tell police Riverman did it. V. The handwriting was identified as Virginia's. A button was found inside, a man's flannel shirt button that didn't match Kenneth's clothing. Though DNA analysis was limited in 1959, saliva recovered from the thermos spout was typed as AB blood, a rare type shared by only 4% of the population. Neither Kenneth nor Barbara had type AB, but military records confirmed that Elmer Vance did. When questioned, Elmer was dismissive. "Why's your spit in their thermos?" the officer asked. "Shared my coffee with them, Christian thing to do," Elmer replied. He was released. Still, with no bodies, there were no charges. By June 1959, the official verdict was issued. Kenneth, Barbara Nancy presumed drowned. Case closed. Barbara's mother was outraged. "Why find the girls 20 miles inland if they drowned?" she demanded. Kenneth's brother asked, "That note said Riverman. Why ignore Vance?" Evidence began disappearing. Susan's sketchbook was reported lost in the evidence vault. Mr. Hopp's was donated to charity, though recovered decades later at a garage sale. Elmer Vance quietly moved to Alaska. He died in 1971. Then, in March of 2024, the Columbia River gave up a piece of the truth. Tech diver Marcus Renfrew located a submerged vehicle in the depths of Rooster Rock Cove. The Bel Air was upright, not crumpled. Its windows were intact, closed and locked. The license plate was visible. Oregon, 1958. A forensic scan of the interior revealed Kenneth's wallet, which contained $40 cash and a Seattle Mechanic Union card. Barbara's purse was there too, holding lipstick and unused train tickets back to Portland. Inside Nancy's thermos, still sealed, was Mr. Hops, his fur preserved. But there were no human remains, no blood, no trace of drowning. On March 15, 2024, UW DNA lab staff examined the rabbit. Mr. Hops's torn ear contained dried saliva, type AB. Elmer Vance's blood type, the red yarn scarf, long missing, was now found tied tightly around the rabbit's neck. The knot type matched those used in trapper snares. Mud samples embedded in the rabbit's fur were analyzed. The soil came from FS Road 17, not the river. The conclusion was grim but conclusive. Nancy had ripped her rabbit from someone's grip on land. It had never entered the river alive. On April 3, 2024, at the Oregon State Police Headquarters, Detective Eva Torres stared at the lab report. Saliva on Mr. Hops's ear matched to Vance paternal lineage. Probability of relation, 99.97%. Nearest living relative, Tucker Vance, age 68, grandson of Elmer Vance. When Tucker was brought in for questioning, the confrontation was immediate. "Your grandfather's spit was on a missing child's toy," Torres said. Tucker shrugged. "So?" "He trapped near Lateral Falls. Found stuff all the time." "Like a live girl?" Torres pressed. "Because Virginia Martin wrote Riverman did it before she died." "Bullshit," Tucker snapped. "Grandpa burned the girl's clothes because they were blood-soaked. Told me, cougar kill." Tucker had previously claimed his alibi for December 1958 was fishing with Grandpa. The same week, Nancy Martin vanished. On April 15, 2024, a forensic re-examination of the thermos that once held Mr. Hops revealed more. A micro-CT scan uncovered a small human bone fragment, specifically a distal phalanx, the tip of a middle-aged man's finger. DNA confirmed the bone didn't belong to Kenneth Martin or Elmer Vance. The injury pattern showed it had been crushed by a blunt object, likely an axe handle. The discovery raised a new question. Who was the third man? During interrogation, Tucker let something slip. Grandpa hated his partner Clyde, said he botched the cleanup. Clyde Vance had disappeared in December 1959. His body was never found. The theory began to take shape. Clyde helped Elmer move the Martins' car. Then Elmer killed Clyde to silence him. In May 2024, police searched Tucker's property in Alaska. What they found would change the course of the investigation. Inside an abandoned trapper's cabin, they uncovered Elmer Vance's journal, faded, water-damaged, but legible. An entry dated December 10, 1958, read, "Clyde found the Martin brat by the river, rabbit in hand, wouldn't stop screaming, had to silence her, tossed the toy in the water, but Clyde kept the scarf. Idiot." An entry from January 1959 read, "Girls starved to death in the old ranger station. Left 'em there. Clyde wants to move the car. Says it's too close." And finally, a chilling line from November 1959. "Clyde drank too much. Bragged at the tavern. Took him to the river. Problem solved." The final entry, dated 1960, simply read, "Where the salmon sleep, the river keeps secrets." In June 2024, Kenneth's wrench, previously found at the ranger station, was re-examined in the OSP weapons lab. Blood was found in the screw threads. DNA testing confirmed it belonged to Clyde Vance, type O+. Toolmark analysis matched the wrench's shape to fractures found in Clyde's exhumed skull, which had recently been recovered near Rooster Rock. The reconstruction was grim. Kenneth had attacked Clyde during the abduction. The wrench was used to crack Clyde's skull. Clyde staggered off and eventually drowned. Elmer, undeterred, captured Kenneth, Barbara, and Nancy alive. Torres made a note in the case file. Kenneth fought. It cost Clyde his life, but Elmer won the war. At the Columbia River Intertribal Council archives, a recording of Wasco elder Marie Jeffers offered chilling corroboration. Old-timers knew about that cove near Rooster Rock, called it Lickswow, where salmon sleep. Said white men dumped bad things there. Cars, barrels, bodies. one winter, saw trappers sink a blue car, like pushing a coffin into a grave. In 2024, the dive team confirmed that weight belts had been wired to the Chevy's axle, proving the car had been intentionally sunk. Inside the car, wedged under the driver's seat, they found Kenneth's wedding ring. It was engraved, "To be, forever yours, K, 1950. By July 2024, the case stood as follows. Tucker Vance had been charged with obstruction, but no murder charges could be filed. There was insufficient evidence to tie him directly to the killings. Barbara and Nancy were presumed dead. Their remains had not been found. A new theory emerged. Kenneth had been killed defending his family, and his body was dumped separately from the car. Elmer Vance, long dead, was posthumously named the primary perpetrator. Clyde Vance, once considered a suspect, was now recognized as a victim. But there were questions that still ached like open wounds. Why did Elmer leave Virginia and Susan to starve? Where was Nancy's body, and who had mailed the taunting letter in 1960? In September 2024, Mr. Hops was placed on permanent display at the Columbia Gorge Museum. The label read, "This rabbit belonged to Nancy Martin, 8, who vanished December 7, 1958. His DNA helped solve a 66-year mystery. He reminds us, secrets drown, but truth floats. If you know where Nancy sleeps, speak." Beside it, a small note card bore Virginia's words, "Tell police Riverman did it. V." Between 1960 and 1975, Eleanor Shaw, Barbara's mother, transformed her grief into relentless action. She became Oregon's first cold case activist. In 1960, she sued Multnomah County for mishandling the Martin search effort and won $15,000. She used every dollar to erect billboards demanding answers. In 1967, she lobbied for what would become known as Nancy's Law, legislation requiring immediate search action for missing children, regardless of presumed runaway status. Her last act came in 1973. She buried Virginia and Susan in a shared grave, placing Nancy's red mitten between their hands. "So they'll have a piece of her when we find her," she said. Her campaign didn't end in vain. It forced the state to form Oregon's first missing persons task force in 1976. In the years that followed, the case haunted pop culture. In 1982, the bestseller Vanished at Vista House claimed Elmer Vance was a serial killer responsible for multiple disappearances. The claims were later debunked, but the book sparked nationwide interest. In 1991, the television movie Where the Salmon Sleep dramatized the Martins' story. The script used fabricated journal entries and was eventually the subject of a lawsuit by the Vance family. By 2015, the true crime podcast Dark Waters featured the case in Season 3. A listener, a retired school teacher, recognized the Vance trapline shack from a photo, leading directly to the discovery of Elmer's long-lost journal. Then came 2024. The recovery of the Bel Air from Rooster Rock Cove triggered sweeping changes. The Oregon State Police introduced the Martin Protocol, mandating sonar scans for all river-adjacent missing person cases and granting families the legal right to request evidence retesting after 10 years. Clyde Vance was posthumously exonerated. In June 2024, the governor officially pardoned him. A victim, not an accomplice. The case also triggered collaboration with the Wasco tribe. Their elders were appointed permanent consultants on Columbia Gorge cold cases, acknowledging the wisdom they had preserved for generations. Meanwhile, forensic scientists drew inspiration from Mr. Hops. The rabbit's preserved DNA inside Nancy's thermos led to the creation of new recovery techniques, gel encapsulation for organic materials, and sonar-based sediment mapping. Submerged evidence, once thought lost to time, could now be recovered with unprecedented precision. In September 2024, the Columbia Gorge History Museum opened a permanent exhibit, The Martins' Last Journey. Visitors could see Kenneth's wedding ring, the thermos with Virginia's note, and the now iconic Mr. Hops. An interactive touchscreen overlaid Susan's sketch onto the modern landscape, aligning her imagined cabin with real geography. The museum's audio tour featured Barbara's sister reading from Barbara's diary. December 6, 1958, Nancy dreamed of mermaids, said they sang her to sleep underwater. Not everyone supported the exhibit. The Vance family petitioned to have Elmer's journal removed. Their request was denied. History isn't comfort, the museum director said. Today, the Martins' legacy lives on through family and those moved by their story. Logan Martin, Kenneth's grandnephew, founded the Nancy's Rabbit Foundation. It funds advanced DNA testing for cold cases. Mr. Hops found the truth, he said. Now he'll help others. Barbara's great-granddaughter, Marie, only 10 years old, places red mittens at La Tourelle Falls every December 7th. Tucker Vance died of a stroke before his trial in August 2024. He took many of Elmer's secrets to the grave, but some truth endures. Inside Barbara's purse, recovered from the sunken Bel Air, investigators found a sealed envelope addressed, "To Seattle Me. Don't forget Gorge Stars. B. Deck 5, 1958. Inside the envelope was a lock of Nancy's hair. It is now being tested for geographic isotope traces to determine where she may have died. Still, many mysteries remain. Sonar scans in August 2024 revealed child-sized bones near Rooster Rock. DNA results are pending. The anonymous 1960 letter, mailed after Elmer moved to Alaska, has been verified as matching Elmer's handwriting. But the postmark raises disturbing possibilities. Did Elmer have an accomplice? And what became of Kenneth? Was he dumped separately from the car? Or is he still in the Columbia somewhere, his last act one of defiance, swinging a wrench to protect his family? Wasco oral traditions speak of a mechanic ghost near Tanner Creek, one who helps lost travelers in the dark, fixing cars that won't start, whispering the name Barbara under his breath. They were just a family chasing Christmas lights. A mechanic trying to start over, a mother trying to hold it all together, 3 daughters with mittens and sketchbooks and a pink rabbit named Mr. Hops. And then, they vanished into the cold. Not because they were careless, not because they got lost, but because someone waited in the fog. For 66 years, truth slept beneath river ice under cedar roots inside a child's forgotten thermos. But it didn't drown, because a rabbit still remembered, because a sketch still whispered, because somewhere the Columbia never forgets. If you've ever driven that road, if your family ever stopped at Vista House, if your grandmother ever mentioned that story from the gorge, listen closely. Elmer Vance is gone, but silence still protects those who helped him. And Nancy? Someone still knows where she sleeps. If you have a lead, even a memory, contact the Oregon Cold Case tip line. Because secrets drown, but truth floats. If this story moved you, share it. Subscribe for more stories where the silence breaks and the lost finally speak.